Good morning, dear students of class 12. Welcome to the English online learning class. Today we are going to further continue with the lesson Lost Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood, Part 4. As we have already discussed about the background of this author Ernest Young and how this book, which is an excerpt this lesson from the book Lost Spring Stories of Stolen Childhood, here the writer analyzes the poverty and traditions which condemn the ragpicker children to a life full of exploitation. We have already done the first part, Sometimes I Find a Rupee in the Garbage, which is a story of a ragpicker called Sahib. And the writer, during interactions with the child, conversation with the child, comes to know that he has come from Dhaka. This is what his mother has told him. He does not have any memory of his native land. They had come and settled in Delhi in search of survival. The child is a rag picker, and every morning he, along with the army of boys whom the writer refers as morning bird, who appear in the morning and disappear in the noontime. When the writer asks this child why does he do this, and the boy replies, he has nothing else to do. Then the writer has an advice for him: go to school. The boy, it has too much of self-respect and says that there is no school in his neighborhood. Then the writer says, if I start a school, will you come? But when the writer meets this child after some days, the child questions the writer, is the school ready? Now this makes the writer realize that she has raised a false hope in the child, and the writer is embarrassed. However, she tries to save herself by saying it takes longer to build a school. She comes to know that this child's name is Sahib-e-Alam, which is very ironical, as the name literally means Lord of the Universe. But this child is struggling for a living. Then the writer also converses with other boys, trying to know them why they are not wearing chappals. She concludes that not wearing chappals is not due to tradition or any other excuse which the children try to give the writer, but it is an excuse to explain away a continual state of poverty. She also recalls a story which a man from Udupi once told her, how they used to pray for a pair of slippers, for a pair of shoes. But 30 years, when the same place was visited, she found that there was lot of development in the place, and children had already got a pair of shoes, proper dress, school bag, which made the writer conclude that during these 30 years, the village had seen lot of development. But as for the condition of the ragpickers in her neighborhood or these child laborer children, it has remained the same. It has not changed over the years. The conversation with this child takes her to Simapuri, the slum where these children had settled, and it makes her remark that the place is in periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it, as the place lacks in progress and development, which one should see in the capital city. The people who had settled here are squatters, ragpickers from Bangladesh in 1971. They had moved from Bangladesh and had settled here. There are 10,000 families of ragpickers living here in deplorable condition, in pathetic condition, half structures, mud structures, broken houses, which is devoid of, lacking in all facilities of sewage, drainage, proper drinking water. In all these 30 years, they have not been able to have an identity, but although they have been provided with ration cards to ensure their name in the voters list. But they do not mind it. For them, identity is not important. For them, survival is important. As long as they get food, it is enough for them. So, survival in Simapuri is rag picking. And for them, garbage holds different meanings. For adults, it is a means of survival. And for children, it is full of wonder and surprise. Now, Sahib also shares with the writer during conversation that he likes the game of tennis, but he is content watching this game being played from outside. And although the gatekeeper permits him when nobody is around and lets him use the swing, which makes Sahib contented. Today, Sahib is happy because he has got a discarded pair of shoes which has a hole. Probably it is of no use for a rich boy, but for Sahib it is a dream come true. After a gap, she meets Sahib again, and he is carrying a canister. There is a canister, steel canister in his hand, and he is on his way to the milk booth. He tells the writer that I have now got a work as a laborer in a tea stall, which is paying me 800 rupees and all my meals. She wants to know from the child, does he like the job? But he doesn't reply. His face is clearly stating that he doesn't carry anymore his carefree look which he used to carry as a rag picker. The steel canister is heavier than the plastic bag he was carrying so lightly on his shoulders, because the bag belonged to him, whereas the canister belongs to the man who owns the tea shop. So Sahib is no longer his own master. He had lost the carefree look which he had as a child. Now we moved on to the second part of this lesson. I want to drive a car, and here writer meets Mukesh, and who shares with the writer his dream of becoming a motor mechanic. The writer asks him a question, does he know anything about cars? And the child says, I will learn to drive a car. His dream looms like a mirage amidst the dust of streets that fill his own town, Firozabad. So it is not sure whether he would be able to fulfill his dream or end up taking up the family lineage of bangle making, as every other family in Firozabad is engaged in the work of bangle making. Firozabad is India's largest center of glass blowing industry, where all the families, they have spent generations working around the furnaces, making bangles for all the women in the land, it seems. So the place thrives in economic activity. Their main work is making bangles. And here, family from generations to generations have been doing this work. Mukesh family is also one among them. But they do not know it is illegal for children like Mukesh to work in glass furnaces where they are exposed to high temperatures and inhuman working conditions in dingy cells without ventilation and light. That if these child labor laws are enforced strictly, then probably these 20,000 children who are working in these hot furnaces would be freed, where they slog daylight hours, often losing the brightness of their eyes. So they are exposed to such working conditions where they are posing great risk to their health. They might lose their eyesight. Mukesh's eyes beam as he volunteers to take me home, which he proudly says is being rebuilt. So Mukesh is happy when he shares with the writer, accompanies the writer to his house, which he proudly says is being renovated. Well, when the writer goes along with Mukesh through the streets of Firozabad, the stinking lanes are stinking, choked with garbage, and the walls are almost crumbling, falling down. Even the doors are coming out. There is no windows in the houses, and Here, families of humans and animals are living in a very deplorable state. He stops at one of the doors, bangs it open with his foot, and when the writer enters there, she finds it is a half-built, small shack, and it is thatched with dead grass, and there is a firewood stove on which a large vessel of sizzling spinach leaves is kept, and a frail woman is cooking the evening meal. She is the daughter-in-law of the house, and she is wife of Mukesh's elder brother. Uh, at a very young age, she has got lot of responsibilities. She commands respect of the bahu, and she is in charge of the three men in the family: husband, Mukesh, and their father. When the old man enters, she covers herself with veil, with a cover, because that is the tradition. And Mukesh's father, who is an elderly, weak, poor bangle maker, despite long years of hard work as a laborer, then as a bangle maker, he has not got anything. He has not saved anything, not enough to even renovate a house or send his two children to school. All he has managed to teach them is only the family lineage of the art of bangle making. It is his karam, his destiny, says Bukesh's grandmother, who has watched her own husband go blind with the dust from polishing the glass of bangles. Can a God-given lineage ever be broken, she implies? Born in the caste of bangle makers, they have seen nothing but bangles in the house, in the yard, in every house, every other yard, every street in Firozabad. Spirals, bangles, sunny gold, paddy green, royal blue, pink, purple, every color born out of the seven colors of the rainbow, lie in mounds in unkept yards, are piled on four-wheeled handcarts pushed by young men along the narrow lanes of the shanty town, and in the dark hutments next to the lines of flames of flickering oil lamps sit boys, girls with their father, mothers, welding pieces of colored glass into circles of bangles. Their eyes are more adjusted to the dark than to the light outside. That's why they often end up losing their eyesight before they become adults. So this is the fate of all the people, all the children in Firozabad. They are working under such conditions where they are making very colorful bangles, but because they are working in very dim lights, in closed furnaces, welding pieces of colored glass together, that their eyes are, they lose their eyesight at a very young age. And this is what Mukesh's grandmother says, it is their karam, their destiny to live and die in poverty. And this they cannot break. This is a God-given lineage to them, which they have to accept as hard fate. Savita, a young girl in drab pink dress, sits alongside an elderly woman. This is another story of a young girl, Savita, soldering pieces of glass. As her hands move mechanically like the tongs of machine, I wonder if she knows the sanctity of the bangles she helps make. It symbolizes an Indian woman's suhag, auspiciousness in marriage. It will dawn on her suddenly one day when her head is draped with red veil, her hands dyed red with henna, and red bangles rolled onto her wrists. She will then become a bride, like the old woman beside her, who became one year many years ago. She still has bangles on her wrist, but no light in her eyes. So that is the irony, that this young girl who is making such colorful bangles, which are symbol of suhag for an Indian woman, but when she gets married, probably will she have eyesight to see the colors of her bangle, of her suhag. एक वक्त के शेर भर खाना भी नहीं खाया, she says in a voice drained of joy. So this woman shares that the bangle making has not given them anything, not even a day's meal, proper meal. She has not enjoyed even one full meal in her entire life. That's what she has been. Her husband, an old man with flowing beard, says, I know nothing except bangles. All I have done is to make a house for the family to live.